Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to do a quick little processing session post my coaching session with Sharon McRae. Many of you are now familiar with Sharon. Did a Facebook Live event with her last week. Sharon is my coach. She is so big and in my life right now. I really look, as I approach about day 50 in my journey of plant-based whole foods eating, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without Sharon. I'm just so thankful for her. Sharon and I meet every 2 weeks for an hour-long phone conversation, but we're in contact in between those 2 weeks by her reviewing my meals and her also sending emails, and so really what I could tell you about just in general what's been so invaluable about coaching with her is that she's helped me really celebrate the victories that I've had as I've gone on this journey. But on top of that, she's also helped show me what the next level is and push me to that next level. And, that's what I feel like the difference between having a coach versus not having a coach has been for me, has been that she's always been able to push me a little bit. And, Sharon would tell you that in order to be able to push someone, they have to be willing to be pushed. And for me, as I consistently go on this journey, I'm feeling more like I want to be pushed. I feel good, and pushing for me is kind of asking me to give up certain things. But there's something I'm noticing, and this is what I wanted to record a video on, is that there's this part of me, and maybe I'm the only one that's out there, but there's this part of me that likes to revert back to this kid and throw a tantrum when certain things are being taken away from me. There's just a part of me, and I've noticed it a lot in my coaching sessions with Sharon. Early on, Sharon sent me an email, and in the email she gave me all this praise and there's this one thing she said, though. She said, you need to eat more greens. And there was something about her saying that just the place I was in when I received that message, I couldn't hear it. It felt like everything in me just got fired up. And there was another stage where, I think 2 weeks later, she's telling me, hey, this garlic spread that you're using, I know it's really good. You think it's really healthy, but it's full of oil and we got to get you off the oils. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like, oil now too? And my initial reaction, as I was pointing out to Sharon, I think is one where I get defiant. Like, no one's going to tell me what I'm going to cut out, right? I'm going to do my own thing. I'm not much of a hider. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to tell you about it, right? Like, so I'm not going to sneak it. But I get defiant. Like, no one's going to tell me to give up this stuff. And then my second phase that I go through is a phase where I kind of calm down emotionally, because it's so emotionally charged. When we have these reactions to, giving up garlic, or, recently it's been this Heidi-Ho cheese that I really like. It's made of chia seeds, and, she's encouraging me to maybe get off of that and just switch to something else. When I get from stage one, which is an emotional tantrum that I throw in frustration, I dig my heels and no one's going to tell me what to do. The second thing that I then find myself entering into is a phase where I could step back from the emotion. I go, you know what? She's probably right. I guess like a kid, I step back and go, mom's got a point here. And when I get to that phase, I start to slowly inch my way to the third phase, which is, eventually taking that step. But what happens between stage 2 and 3, me actually taking the step, is usually a lot of fear and a lot of catastrophizing. So, I'll look at that Heidi-Ho cheese, or I'll look at that garlic spread, or I'll look at eating more greens, and I'll just go, oh my God, I make it like the biggest deal in the world. And a lot of what I tell myself is, my world is shrinking. That's the fear. And what I really help my clients do, and I try to do this for myself too, is really get away from, it's not about the Heidi-Ho cheese. It's not about the garlic spread. It's not about eating more greens. There's something being activated in you emotionally. Why don't we speak to that? And when we speak to that feeling, what we find is really the trueness of what's being activated and that needs to be addressed. For me, it's a sense of being panicked. It's a sense of my world shrinking. Those are the thoughts that I get in my mind. And where does that come from? That just comes from fear. So I think kids, when you take things away from them, even if the parent knows that what you're taking away from them is for their own good. A kid throws a fit because the initial reaction is, you took away my security blanket. You took away something that I felt safe about, I enjoyed. The emotion that we feel in those moments overrides all of our ability to see things reasonably and logically. And I still have that. Even as a 34-year-old male, I still have that little kid in me that comes out at times. I saw another post someone recently made. She's a trainer that I really respect and love. Her name's actually Megan Ruth from Results Gym. And she made a post where she said, it's funny that there's some people that, you tell them an answer, and if they don't like it, they'll just go to someone else until they get the answer they like. And she said, I'm pretty sure kids do that. And my first reaction was thinking to myself, I didn't say this to her, but maybe she's watching. I said, I'm thinking, Megan, that's what I do. I'm more aware of it now, but that's the child in me that, even with Coach Sharon, there's times where I'll ask her 3 times the same question, and 3 times she'll tell me, this is why it's not good for you. This happened with recently, again, me giving up this cheese product, or this fake cheese product. And so I just want to share my story because I think it's very relatable. I think I hear it a lot with my clients. I also want my clients to know that I go through this stuff just like you do. I throw tantrums about different food, and it's not about the food. It's about the emotional process. It's about what's under the surface. And so we really have to identify when we start to find ourselves having these emotional reactions to food information, what's below all of that. Often it's fear, often it's a sense of anxiety. We just don't like change naturally. So I think that's really what we have to start tuning into. The third phase, as I mentioned, is change. And for me, what I have found in this process of whole foods plant-based eating is that every step of the way where I feel like this fear comes up in this first phase of this childlike defiance, no one's going to tell me what to do. I won't eat more greens even if you think it's good for me, or even if it is good for me, I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to give up the garlic spread. I'm not going to give up the chia cheese. When I eventually get, though, to phase 3 of elimination, I almost realized, oh my gosh, Coach was right. Almost like you realize Mom was right. What was on the other side of that change actually wasn't that big of a deal. And you could really see with a clear head how much you were creating this story about how bad it was going to be. I'm wearing the shirt conveniently now. I rewrite my story. You guys know I say it over and over. But what stories are we telling about food? What stories are we telling about the world? What stories are coming up for us as we make changes? All of us have some bit of fear inside of us that gets ignited. And it gets ignited over things that we think it shouldn't get ignited over. We go, there's no way it's possibly getting ignited over me giving up cheese, fake cheese. There's no way it's possibly ignited when someone's telling me what to do, even though what they're telling me is good for me. But the reality is that this stuff comes up for us. And if we're not in touch with those feelings and emotions, what we tend to do is we get stuck in phase 1, which is defiance. We don't change. We don't make a difference. I remember as a kid always being afraid of heights. I think as an adult, I'm still afraid of heights, although it's a little bit different. But when I was a kid, there were times literally where I would go to the public pool. I'd be with all my friends, and I'd see everyone just getting up like it's no big deal, diving off the high dive, doing different stuff. And I'd go, God, I want to get on that high dive so much. And so there'd be occasionally times where I would actually get up and build the courage to climb up the steps. And with each step, I was trembling, I was scared. And more often than not, unfortunately, I'd get to the top and I'd go, you know what, sorry guys, I got to go back down. And that walk of shame was tough because I think more than anything, what it did is not only did it feel shameful, but it also built up more fear. I didn't realize it at the time, but it did. It made that high dive even scarier than it was to begin with. But there were a few times where I actually climbed up and I faced the fear and I just jumped. I jumped in. And there came those seconds right after that I hit the water. I remember thinking, even before I came up for my first breath, I remember the thought coming to me of, oh my God, like, you made this out to be the worst thing in the world, and this is great, this is fun. That's what's happening for me as I give up more and more things in this whole foods plant-based journey. I mean, I'm telling people now, when they ask. They're like, you don't eat meat, you don't eat dairy, it's almost been 50 days. Yeah, I don't eat oil either. And people think that's crazy. People think it's a matter of giving up willpower. You know what? Or exerting a lot of willpower. This is the easiest thing I've ever done. And I'm not here to tell anyone about this, to sell you. I'm not selling stuff at the farmer's market. Not yet. But I'm just sharing this journey because of how easy it's been for me. I want to inspire others. There's some people that have been stuck in these phases where they feel like they just have to battle food. And it could be so easy. I never knew it until I tried this. But there are things right now that we are afraid of. And what is truly below it? And if we get on the other end of it, is it really as scary as we thought? That's what I'm realizing that's happening for me right now. I'm addicted right now like I was in some ways addicted to certain foods. I'm addicted to feeling better. And what my coach is really trying to get me to do is she's trying to get me to feel better. That's her job. She's passionate about it. And it's not that my world is shrinking. She mentioned this on the call. It's not that your world is shrinking. It's actually that your world is getting bigger. When I tell you to move away from that processed food, I'm actually encouraging you to move to a place where there's more options. But initially, I told her, it brings up fear in me. And if I don't deal with that fear through introspection, if I don't talk about it with her in my coaching calls, what am I really doing? I'm not doing anything. I'm not making any change. This is where the change happens. This is why this stuff matters. This is why the emotional side of our journey, our relationship with food, is everything. And if we're not talking about it, if we're not addressing it, we're always going to have the same thing. Yo-yo on the scale. We're never going to see our blood tests actually level out and stabilize. We're not going to be healthy for life. It's going to be just phases of health and unhealth. So I think what the key is, there's a lot of keys, but this is one of them. Knowing what the emotional ties that you have are to food. And not just that. What are your emotional reactions when you're scared? If you're like me, you throw a tantrum. Eventually you calm down. And then you approach that change. For some of us, we're still stuck in phase 1. We're still throwing tantrums about certain things we know we need to change. So I hope in that way you guys are inspired today. To know you're not alone. To know I'm right there with you going through it. And together we can face these fears. Jump in that water. It's not as bad. It might be cold. It might be a shock to your system, but it's kind of fun. And so I encourage all of you to do that today.